And we're back to learning to SE, or as me just randomly playing Space Engineers on a Sunday. Welcome back. Hope you had a good week. I had a good week. Got some stuff done. That's always nice. But we're more about getting stuff done here. Instead of you having to sit through watching me load this screen, I'm just going to start out with the showcase of what I've been doing in my spare time. So we're back at the, like I said, my personal save. And what we've been working on, or what I've been working on while you've been gone, is, so I've been working on the base. As I said last week, I was disgruntled with how short the hangar bays were, so I extended them. I got that done. That was a pretty easy job, actually, because it's just I added 8 more blocks of length to each of those. Added some more detail to the front of each of these. Added some guns, not a whole lot. Added these bays in the corner. There's 4 of them. I liked how they turned out. Actually, I was quite surprised how they turned out, actually. With the lighting and stuff like that, looked really kind of industrial and kind of nice, so. And that worked out well. Nothing too changed internal. I mean, I had to change a little bit since these got longer, the spaces at the end. I just moved them forward. That was really all that happened there. So that work didn't take a whole lot. It's not posted yet because it's still got a lot of work yet to be done with it. There is the greebling is one term, kit bashing is another. Here's how the guns worked out. This is me pushing myself to use the I forget what they're called. They're basically the transition blocks, which I'm admittedly have problems with because I don't like using them. They're I'm not used to them. They came out in one of the last updates and just had a problem with them. You'll notice that I didn't move the thrusters forward. All I did was just detail it inside and close them off. This is totally workable. It will not explode those blocks with running those thrusters. It's totally legit. I've tested it before, so now it's just hidden thrusters. These I have not figured out what I'm doing about yet. I have yet to really be inspired yet with that. But like I said, I still have some greebling is one term. I call it kit bashing, which is basically in Star Wars where you add texture to stuff so that it's not so flat and boring, because it's really flat and boring. And that's where I'm at right now, is like there's too many flat boring surfaces on this thing yet. I mean, it's gotten better, but it's still got a ways to go. The other thing that I'll show you, and it's a part of another thing that I spent way too much time yesterday working on, where it was like, oh, I'm just gonna spend a morning doing this, and then ended up spending pretty much most of the day in between doing responsible things like house cleaning, stuff like that. Hangar D, it's a Hangar B. Hangar D, which stands for defense, it's where we put our fighters, and I've done some work on this one, including adding the fighters. So we've got some nice little steps here with some walkways and stuff. And then we have our base defense fleet, which is my version of the TIE Advanced Fighter. It's very nice. Was a design I was working on a little bit last week, or 2 weeks ago, and kind of like formalized it, and liked it so much, I was like, hey, let's build a bunch of these. And if I'm going to build a bunch of these, I might as well build a factory for it. So that was the big project. Was I built I had to build a fighter assembly line. So we're gonna go see that now. Oh, and also I did another thing too, but that didn't take very long. It was more just a copy paste. I'd already built it. I just had to clean it up and move it. So I moved the garage, which is also all of the universal component buildings, my new buildings based off of it. So this is the garage, and like I said, these are all based off the old factory in Frostbite, which is the stream that I do tomorrow. This is those cleaned up, repaired, and then modified for functionality. So there's a cargo over here, and then you can go up. This is all self-sustaining. I left the door open. I changed the basic assembler is here to a full assembler. This will work remotely. There's a bathroom here now, and armory here. You go over here, and there's a little lounge, and then it has a survival kit available to it, and there's actually O2H2 gen hiding down there below, so it's fully functional. And then you have, like, you know, a little berthing area here for crew. So the garage is nice for using just as a single point, single base. So yeah, that worked out well. Actually, I can turn this off so I can see better. And I've showed off the this is the workshop. This is now on the workshop as well. I felt that was adequate because I had been using it for, this is where I designed that new fighter, and obviously the factory, which we've seen before, and the medical building. Again, those are on the workshop now. But here it is, the new fighter factory, I call the assembly line. Built similar to the workshop with the design, trying to keep the universal components design methodology in place. We have some more of the fighters out here that need just some finish work done on them. Mostly it's just fixing the menus so that if I put them on a connector, they don't interfere with the other blocks. And we'll show more of that. So let's get inside this bad boy. So this has two doors. This is the just maintenance door, which is where you like load in materials and stuff like that. And this is where you get the ship out of, a larger door. Got a little man door on this side, man door on the other side. Have control room up here. The line is down here. And this is where all the magic happens. This is a massive series of welders. Don't want to stand in this while they're on. That's why there's warning lights everywhere. We'll watch this run. So we have a control room, which uses our usual universal components configuration, security desk. We walk in, we've got our armory. Walk in here, this is basically the workroom. This is running an inventory manager. This helps make so that, like, because this whole thing can run continuously. You just have to kind of pay attention to it. And we have a break room with a survival kit. Because we've got welders outside, you're gonna get injured. And, you know, an emergency berthing for, you know, the guy who's got the night shift at the factory. So yeah. So the best way to show how this sucker works is to run it. And There's multiple start buttons. The easiest one to actually get to is in here. So what we're gonna do is just, hopefully this works because I don't know if I reset it properly, but we just hit the assembly line prep button, hit the button, and it should start working. Oops. Man, the odds of me hitting that, going to open the door and actually hitting the control panel for it. So this hitting the prep button turns on the welders. It will weld this little conveyor block on there and then turns on the projection so that it will start welding, and then it'll weld this initial bit, and then as it gets closer to the next set of welders, it'll start welding some more of it. So yes, that'll look like they're set. From start to finish, this will print a ship in about 3.5, 4 minutes. The turnaround time has another 10. You have basically 10 minutes from the completion of the current one before it starts printing the next one. But we'll stop it before then because we don't need to be making a butt ton of these. We've got a lot. So we'll watch it from here and then we'll switch around to the front once we see the phase 2. So this is all phase 1, which is piston 1. It stops. And then when that goes up, we're into phase 2, which the second piston will start extending. Want to stand back but not too far back. For some reason these doors have been buggy, and if you get too close to them, they've been injuring me for some reason. Don't know why. So you can see this is gonna kind of roll right in. So what's great about this is, and I'll go into more details once it finishes, but this does a complete weld of the ship and full separation, and will actually reset itself and start printing. If you don't do anything else, it'll start printing another ship. And so you'll need to, where a person needs to be involved in this factory is that you've got 10 minutes to get this ship from when it's done out of the way before the next one starts rolling through. Actually, it's about 13 minutes. So it's gonna roll up on this connector. You can see it's fully welded. Rolls up to this connector. It's gonna stop. It's gonna wait for about a 5 to 10 second count. It's gonna switch lock, turn the welders off. The upper welders move out of the way, and then it goes and it starts the reset cycle. And you'll see that that block is highlighted by itself. That's why there's two projectors, one to highlight that block, and if I was to let the return process keep running, it'll weld that block, then turn on that other projector, and then that will make it so that the second projection will do. The gun is set up to fire once, and what that does is it blows away that block and it makes it repeatable. This armor block doesn't receive any damage, much like this armor block here on the print. However, I haven't figured out a way to make it so these blocks don't experience damage. So that's a little like post assembly, and you always have the metal scrap left over. So I need to go down here to this one and stop it, otherwise it'll start printing another one. But yeah, it'll continuously roll through it. Now, in the control room, we're running a block renamer script, and we're gonna call this one number 5, because I think I didn't. So we go down here and it's type 2. This is actually going to be type 5, and run, and it will update all of the names on there. The problem is that it updates all the block names, which is great. It does not, however, update the group names. So that's still, I've yet to figure out how to get that to update. That's still a manual process, but we do that, and it's for the most part ready to go. I just go up here. This does use one mod. It uses this hatch mod. Close the door. Oops. So you can see all these are now called Tie 5. The problem is that the groups are still called Tie, and even if I have them as Tie 2, they'll still stay Tie 2. So the only thing it really requires update is you just got to go through all of these and change the name of those, because they'll still what I found out is that even though the block names change that they're associated with, so if I was to open this up and look at hydrogen, select tie thrusters, say, it should only be, this was the experiment I was working on earlier, it should only be tied to the tie 5 ones. But if I connect it to anything that has the tie series on it, it will try to control them. In other words, it will marry group names. So if I have tie thrusters for tie 5 and then as a group, and tie thrusters as a group on the next one, even though they're associated, there's just one group if they're both connected on the same station. And so it ends up controlling all of them. It's fine when they're disconnected, but this is one of the things when I was talking about, like, it's not so much about block renaming as much as the groups have to be individually set as well. So tank's 100%. We can fly this out. And in a short 3 minutes, we have a new fully functional thruster. I mean, the only downside is all these don't have fully charged batteries, but they run on hydrogen as opposed to battery. So other than running the O2H2 gen in the weapons and lights, the battery usage is pretty minimal. And there's reactors on board, so if you have uranium, which I currently don't have in this save, because it's a survival save and I haven't gotten any yet. That's the other thing too. I design everything and right now that I want to post the workshop, and this is part of my process anyways, is I can design anything in creative mode, but for me to post the workshop I have to build it in survival to ensure that it actually functions the way that it that it's buildable and functional the way that it's supposed to be. Now, I can't say that this is all me. What happened is that I originally was going to I was thinking about designing a new fighter, and I was hemming and hawing and stuff like that. I like doing Star Wars themed stuff, and so I went to the workshop just for kind of inspiration. Actually, I want to go over here. And so I was just like, well, and it just popped up, just like I think it was on the highlighted board, and I was like, oh, that's super cool. I have to build one. So I copied the blueprint and I liked it. It needed some modifications, but this is the Nissus Clawcraft. This thing is baller as hell. This thing is amazing. and I was going to make this, but it has some limitations from factory builds. One of them being is that all of these arms to achieve this, they're on hinges, and building in survival, anything that's beyond the hinge would either have to have its own you'd either have to manufacture the part separately and attach it, or it has to have its own projector, and that when the grid in such a fashion that and it would have to be at like right this where this cargo block is, the attachment point of the hinge, so that when the hinge is welded, then that projector is welded, and that projector, when once welded, can then be turned on to highlight this, because projectors won't project subgrids in survival, so it won't work. So so there wasn't really, and I could have like manufactured the arm separately and had like attachment, but there's problems with getting the arms in place, exploding bits, manufacturing the arms, the amount of space it needs, and it was logistical. Like if I wanted to spend 3 months on it, I could do it, but I was like, I wanted to do something in a week, so it's just like, okay, this is a prototype, and so this is originally on the workshop. I'll have the link in the comments for the videos later, but this isn't the original. I modified it by extending it by 1 block so that I could add this hatch, because I didn't like the way that the top was. It made getting in and out of it a raging pain in the ass, and I was like, I want a hatch to get in and out. So I extended it by 1 block. And changed some of the block arrangement to deal with the fact it was extended 1 block. The rest of it's pretty much the same as it was in the original blueprint. I changed one thing. I added a vent here, an event, so that this is, and then I made it airtight. There is a problem with the airtightness, so these rounded blocks, which make for a cool canopy, but the rounded blocks in these corners do not make an airtight seal even if you put a block there. And it's because, weirdly, like, no matter you can make it airtight, but you have to have, and it's a weird thing, it has to be a full block behind it. But I could cheat it by putting a glass block there, and it's just like, well, if I put a glass block in those 4 corners to make it airtight, I'll put displays there so that I can, so that was the one change. It makes the cockpit look a little funky out the front, as you can see. But where the guns are located actually works out pretty good, because it's still in the sight line of, you can tell by the red dots, it looks right straight ahead. So the alignment there looks good. But yeah, you end up with a lot of lines in front of you because of all of the glass blocks. But I mean, the visual range of it isn't that great to start with, and then you add all that in. But and it's like, other than when you're actually shooting on something, you'd probably be in third person anyways. But yeah, it's a really cool ship. Like I said, I just changed it because I like my ships that if I have it so that, you know, that you're in a cab that you'd think would be airtight, that it is actually airtight, and then if you're in an atmospheric area, that the air comes from in there. Otherwise, it will cut down on. At least having it airtight means that when you're flying it, your oxygen, I can throw some oxygen bottles in the seat, and that'll keep the cab, the cockpit of that thing oxygenated for a while. So that works out pretty good. So because of that, it's just like, okay, well, if I can't make this, even though I really, really like it, what can I do? It's just like, well, I'm not going to be able to do those and not have it look stupid in a static way, but I want static, so it's like, okay, I'll go with the TIE Advanced. The problem with the TIE Advanced is that when I was originally shaping it, is the fact these fronts, you know, this is much more curved and larger, so it really needs to kind of be 1 more block higher, but which I can do no problem and actually get a good curve to it. But then the next problem comes into is that these it ends up cutting these corners, these corners here at an angle is just not possible in a coherent way when you're trying to angle it in. Like going up and straight and then curling back, no problem, but trying to bring it up at an angle. So it's okay with 2 blocks, but once you get into a third, it turns into a nightmare. So I was just like, because nothing works out. And I spent, like I said, I was working on this week before last and tried a couple of iterations, and I was like, you know what? It still looks pretty cool if I just cut the top and bottom rows off and put the angle in, and because I could not get this like last block that would end up like right about here. Critical. I couldn't get it figured out. So I just didn't. I was just like, can't get it, cut it off. And maybe I'll get inspiration later, or there'll be some other magical block that'll come and save me, but for now, this will work. So yeah, that's what was like. So, oh, dang it, Phil, thank you. So doing this took a while. That's why I end up with so many of those ships. Is because you run it through. The first one was complete garbage, did not work at all. I cut that one down. Second one was good, but there was portions of it that didn't weld, so rearrange the welders. Print another one. Still didn't print all the way. Rearrange the welders. Print it again. Oh, so let's actually talk about that a little bit. So, and I'm gonna post a link to Dark Armor because he was the one that reminded me of this fact, and his YouTube stream is amazing, particularly when it comes to detailing stuff and some tips and tricks. There's a couple of them that it's just like, hey, you can do this, and this is like, you used to be able to do that and you can't anymore. There is one trick he talked about, which is if you have spectator available, you highlight this, go into spectator mode, and you can see where that block is highlighted, that you can actually still go into the menu by hitting K, which you can't. And if you come out of spectator and even go into the menu, then you can't go into spectator mode. So, and it was a functionality, it used to work, it doesn't work anymore. Somebody broke it. It's okay, we got build vision, it's fine. But he reminded me of this fact that, like, if you use this block here, it's cheap and goes completely away with a single shot. You can program into a timer block, which is gonna be is it this one? I don't think it's this one. Yeah, it is. You can actually program in a timer block, shoot once, and then retract all the pistons. We shut off the. So one of the reasons why we shut off this other projection is if we have both projections going at the same time, you can still weld this block, but sometimes if there's if the blocks are not the same, two competing projections, because the original one I had in here didn't have this block, it had a hinge block because I was trying something. But this ensures that this welds, because you basically have, see how it's kind of like doing like a little shiny bit? There's essentially two blocks that are trying to vie for the same spot. They're the same block and they're in the same position, but there's always a chance that you can weld this block, but it's attached to this grid, not this grid, and it just falls off and then it won't print. So just as it's really more of a safety measure, I turn that off so that when the welders come on, it welds that block, then it turns that block on, and then it starts printing. And it originally prints the tails end. So when making assembly lines on this, this is actually, and this is, I'm not happy with this, so I'm not entirely sure I'm going to post this particular facility onto the thing, because it's one of those things where I got through and I was doing it, and then I got the building all built. I got halfway through the welders to do the first test run, and realizing I built the entire thing backwards. And by backwards I mean is that what happens is that projections build essentially in the direction, let's turn this back on so you can see what I'm talking about. So projections build in only in the available block that's welded. So none of this would will weld until there is a block that is already in the projection welded. So what'll end up, the short story being, this welds from back to front, but the pistons are moving forward. So what's happening is, and this is why there's so many welders, is that so when this starts welding, it welds this tail end, and it comes down here, and it doesn't start welding the next bit of this thing until that welded portion reaches this welder. Then it starts welding the associative parts as it gets filled in, basically. So it starts printing up there, but the piston's still moving forward, so it moves forward, and then this one that's hinged down starts getting to the upper bits that's not reachable by the side ones here. And there's just two of them to make sure that, so that I can run it a little bit faster. When I ran it with 1 inch lower, it would miss blocks. So and then so it's trying to weld back to front, even the piston's going now. So what I really needed to do was have the pistons fully extended. So when you're doing your own manufacturing, don't have all the way closed be the finish point, or the start point. Have it all the way extended be the start point. Pull it back through the welding process. Or if you're gonna push it in the direct, so in a fashion. In other words, I could do the same thing, but what I have to do is have a row of blocks come down and a row of blocks come forward and connect up to the front part here, so it would weld front to back. But then I get into, with the way this is designed, if you notice, you have these side wings, and I can't get the center part welded, and I need the center part weld before I need the sides to weld. So it kind of works out for this ship, but like, I've done a much smaller, more simpler version with another ship that I did, because it inhabits a space where all I have to do is have two far out welders, basically, which would be these ones here, and then two close in welders, top and bottom, and literally just have to run it back and forth through that, like those 4 welders, and it will weld up. And it's yeah, I don't have anything posted with that yet, but I done it in a stream a long time ago, like 2 years ago. But that's one method. So it goes through, and this welder, so that it welds this center bit top that isn't really handled by these welders, and these are too far out to handle the center welding, at least dead center welding, so I had to have this one that come down. But as you can see, if I extend this piston, which is number 1 piston, I'm just gonna reverse that. The gun that actually breaks the connection once the ship is finished gets in the way, and I couldn't put it down. Actually, I probably could actually put it on the downside and actually take up less space. And probably basically what it was is that me being derpy and realizing as I'm talking right now that if I move that gun just mounted off of here pointing up instead, well, I remember why, because I was afraid of the loose round. I'd rather damage the floor than damage the ceiling, and I wanted it to shoot down. That's what it was. So it was running into that welder and having a fit. Much like I had to change this blueprint because I originally had the hatch door open, and what was happening was that as soon as that hatch welded, by that welder no less, it would open up into the welder and get stuck. So I had to recopy the blueprint with the hatch in a down position so it'd stay out of the way. But if I was to reverse this hinge, I have to remember to reset all this. As you can kind of see if I stand on this one, that gun and that welder would interact if the second piston fired, which is actually this piston. As soon as this piston would fire, it would run into that welder. So I had to I needed the hinge so that I could get down into the proper area, but also so that we could back off and get out of the way. And then as the second piston moves forward, and these run at I think it's 0.01 speed. Yeah, 0.1 meters per second, which is about that means that it takes damn it. And that's what happens if you leave that in place and run that. It gets in the way and gets snagged. The pistons run so it takes 10 seconds for it to go 1 meter, and they go 10 meters, so it takes 100 seconds for the piston to go fully extended. This one doesn't take as long because it doesn't extend all the way. It actually only goes 9.2, so 92 seconds to get, which is about a little over a minute and a half to get all the way extended. And once it's there. Now this is the weird thing, and then you have these finalizing, and these ones raise up, but it's only to make a little bit of room so that when you take off you don't bang into them. And these ones are fine, even though they're kind of showing they're going through. The tips don't count, they're not a part of the collision. So as long as you pull straight forward, which is the only direction you really need to go anyway. So in the blueprint, you'll notice there is, it looks like a whole block gap in here, but it's not. So what happens is if you noticed if I was to lower this one block, it would snag on here and wouldn't make it. Being one more block up, even though it looks like it's far, just due to the flex in the pistons and everything like that, and the fact that these connectors are the magnetics will pull it in. When it gets close, it will actually come in, and then it'll and it makes it so it's available for attachment. And so when doing, this is why there's actually 5. There's 4 here, and then there's 1 stuck. Actually, no, did I move it? Yeah, 1 stuck back here. I had to move these timers blocks around a few times to kind of find places to stick them. So you have a prep one, which I think is actually this one. Prep. So this will turn on the welders, make sure the projector 1 is off, make sure the projector 2, which is the initial block, is on. It will start the timer on the actual number 1 block, turn on the warning lights, and make sure the hangar door is closed. Then the number 2, so the actual number 1 first action is going to turn on that projector 1 block. So now that little itty bitty block is welded, it'll start extending piston 1. It will bring the hinges down and then fire off the 2 and start the timer on 2. And so timer 2 block, which runs for 1 minute and 45 seconds, which is when phase 1 completes, it will raise up that 1 hinge to get that out of the way, extend piston 2, and then fire off timer block 3, which will start the second phase. Timer block 3 will go for 1 minute and 40 seconds, and which is basically the end of the line. It should all be completely welded. It will switch the lock on the connector, turn the welders off, turn the warning lights off, reverse the hinges of the secondary welders to make room for the ship to take off, and then fire the finishing block 4 off. Finishing block 4, I had to move way the back over here. And what this does is this just fires the separator so that it separates it, retracts all the pistons, turns projector block 1 off and opens the doors, and then fires the prep block's timer to restart the process. So this will just assembly line keep creating blocks. This, if not directly triggered, so when I started this I hit the trigger now versus the start, because otherwise it's going to wait 10 minutes and it'll start that whole process all over again. So it will literally keep kicking out fighters as long as there's material. So to facilitate that, besides solar panels handling all the charging of the batteries and everything, and ice in O2H2 generator, or running Izzy's inventory script on this one? Yeah, this one. And we're using the inventory script. We're making sure that it stocks this amount of blocks. Now, this amount of blocks is rounded up, but it's enough to make 2 fighters. The reason for 10 minutes is 1, to give you time to go to the block renaming and rename the blocks, but 2 also is to allow for it to manufacture a new set of blocks. Now, if you're in a hurry and you have to make 2, you can always go and then just hit this button when it's in that timeout once everything is retracted, which will just trigger the start of that prep, and we'll build another one. But keep in mind, you can only do that once, and you'll have to shut off that because you can quick fire another one, but you can't do 2 in a row. It just doesn't have enough time in between cycles to manufacture all the parts. That can be adjusted by adding another, because to get that timing down to what I considered, wow, it's amazing how I was able to do that twice in a row. It's running just 1 speed, actually it's one speed module and 1 power module to keep it from utilizing too much power. And the way it's connected, you could either add half a speed module, which won't give you much, or you can remove the power module and swap it out for a speed module, and it might manufacture parts a little bit quicker. But I find is that the cost versus return, cost being more power and using parts, versus return of being able to print, make parts a little bit faster, just doesn't weigh out. It's better to, it's like a 15-minute turnover cycle is actually pretty busy. By the time that you hear that gunfire, you can from the control room, that gun fires, it's basically a starter pistol to say, okay, rename the block, go out here, run down this hallway, if you're not already close, jump into the ship, fly it out of the hangar, because you can do all of the menu stuff post assembly, and and get it out of the way before the next printing cycle starts. So, and 10 minutes is a good amount of time. Now we might hear kitties meowing in the background because they're super angry because Dad went away for the day to go visit his mother. Like a good boy should. So they got fed a little late, so they're a little pissy. I think it's like, it's not like you went hungry, you just had to wait an extra 3 hours. Oh no. Okay, once we get this down, they should already be in the up position. Yes. And that needs to be in the up position. That's its starting position. So this should, once that's retracted, everything should be all set. All right, so yeah, that's the factory. Like I said, it's not pretty. I mean, it's pretty in the sense that I was really happy with how the kit bashing aspect of this came out. I added my as per usual large window so that you can see what the weather's like outside and get that natural light in here. Reinforced it. I didn't make this airtight because there's no point. It's a factory assembly line and large doors open and close. It's pointless. The office is airtight though. So, and to keep it, you know, operating efficiently and stuff like that, just a large, this makes it so that it's works in most environments. If you take it to, say, so work here on Earth, it'll work on Titan, work on alien planet, I believe it's and even Mars. I think depending on the altitude, there's like a Mars is 50-50. You may have to change this out with a O2H2 gen to actually make the vent on the inside work, because it might not be able to suck up enough O2 in the air to give oxygen inside. But this method of, you know, using a air vent set to decompress to a vent set to run normally works even if you have a low oxygen environment. It doesn't work if there is a no oxygen environment. So the moon, the Triton moon, Europa, this process won't work. It won't do anything because it can't ingest enough oxygen to but it will work on a low. So I've done it on Pertem, I've done it on Alien, I believe. I know I've done it on Titan and Pertem. Alien, I'm not sure. I believe it's low oxygen, so I believe that works. So it does make it work on most of the things, but it's a small mod to kind of change it around to make it do something else. So it's pretty versatile in that standpoint. And there's an oxygen tank over here. It's not really doing a whole lot because it's not. So you can, there's an oxygen in this vent in the system, but there's nothing that runs to the, and there's no piping that runs to this office. So with a little bit of modifications, it probably could happen. It gets close. Like right here is the closest it gets, so you could probably run something straight down and back. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. Run something down and then back and then get into there. And there's a lot of because I did have so there's a couple interior walls here and 2 interior walls here, so you can change the arrangement around of like these 5 blocks to make it kind of work. So, and that's how I think it's like, you don't have to solve it for every environment, but you have to leave a lot of room to make it work in most, so that you can change it around. One of the other things was I originally had this flat because that's usually how I do these, but it's like you can't see anything. I mean, not that you can see a whole lot from here, but you can at least see, you know, his arms working and stuff like that. You can kind of get a feel from this control room area where things are at. And then you have a button to and I may change this out to so I can label these buttons instead of just highlighting over them. You can reverse all of the assembly lines. You can emergency turn the welders off. This will stop the prep block, which means if you're cycling through and you don't want to build another one, you click that one. This will trigger it now. So that's the start. This is the, okay, it's done, don't do no more. Okay. And then you just have these readouts are just from the inventory manager, Izzy's inventory manager script, which is a great script. I like it. You can actually get your ore readouts from that, and you can get your parts readout from that. But I mean, yeah, so I have the parts readout from the auto crafting thing, so it works. But it gives you like a percentage, so you can tell when you're how ready you are. Like I said, there's enough in the build for 2. So if you see less than 50% here, you don't want to start another one. And then your ores, just want to make sure that you're like not running out of something, because otherwise you can't build more parts. And to load ores into here, you have this connector right here. And the way I do it, which is fun, and I'm gonna put it in the workshop, is even though it's such a low-tech kind of thing, let's say we're low on at least one thing, I think, after that last build. Yeah, we're a little low on cobalt and magnesium. So we can just move it over by hand, but this is what I do for funsies. It's kind of like a little so that you can move a little bit more material than just what your engineer can carry around. So we go in here, we're gonna open up this back door, and we're gonna use our this little guy, and this is my little kind of emergency refuel called CAT SV service vehicle. So we can go in here, inventory for this deal. We're gonna go here, we're gonna go to this little cargo, and we're gonna, I said we need a little bit of cobalt, so I'll take like 500 of that, a little bit of magnesium, take about 100 of that. Alright, we'll just disconnect that from the front there, back this out, and then we have our little, and one of the cool things is that I designed this really so that I can load something that I can't get to a normal connector. So if it's a ship where the connector's on the back, like some of my rovers, I can do that, but I can select up this hinge, and if it's got an upward facing connector, as long as I got the space to get to it, I can turn this up and connect it that way and do it. It's also got 2 onboard hydrogen tanks, even though it doesn't need them, and those are strictly for just, I can connect to a ship that's running out of fuel and give it just a little booster to get the tank so that I can fly it to, you know, say something ran out of fuel before it got to the connector. I can possibly connect up to it depending on its orientation, and I can, so we just drive over here. The wheels are turned down a lot, so it makes it easier to kind of steer and maneuver. You just drive this in, connect it up, drop off our goodies. Disconnect it. Pull back out. But like I said, it's just a little service rover. Worked great with so my other rover, I have this loading dock, and I can pull the other rover, it's got a connector on the back, into this loading dock, and then I can unload it with that thing, and I can load it into here. I have on the workshop, I have a connector right there so that I can connect to, and I have one on there. So, and if I just want to load it into the factory, obviously that's where I park it to keep it charged and ready to use, so it's obviously I can load stuff into there as well. So that's handy. It's not very fast because I don't like adjusting the speed on it, and this is the fastest I could run it without having, but I wanted to have the smallest turning radius possible, so that I can steer it in tight places. But if you have the speed too high, it gets hard to steer. So this was the balance of all those things. So, and you can even access the inventory from back here. It's a handy little rover jobby. Like I said, I can pull this one and that connector with the half blocks. Lines up really well. One of the things that I remembered as I was kind of going through some post-video stuff, part of the whole point of this stream was just to show how to do certain things. I was doing a really good job in the first one, and that kind of fell, and even the second one, but it slowly started to peter off as I was going. So while I'm here, I'll show a couple of things that tricks that I use on the builds of these. And this trick was used a lot in this factory, and one of the things that I have gotten into doing a lot of is reducing the amount of full blocks that I use. So there's a column of full blocks here, there's a bunch of full blocks on these, but the rest of this is really just kind of built out of using those half blocks. And the reason being is that they weld considerably less, quicker, and use less material, because these half blocks, you can see, takes 12, where these whole blocks take 25. So you actually, it's less than half of what it takes to build a full block there. So that's always nice. Let's grab a couple. Let's grab 10. So one of the things that I do to kind of set these bases up to kind of get them built, and you notice the floor is sitting, and it's, you notice how weirdly on ice lakes particularly, because it's a nice flat surface. This is the reason why I use these, because in these terrain areas, flat surfaces don't really exist. Like, this seems pretty flat, but when you land here and then you place a block down, you see it's actually got a curve to it. So you can work with the curve, you can, but whatever I build tends to be kind of customized to the terrain. I mean, I can put these buildings here, but then I have to modify them. And so there's a couple methodologies here. So if you're building net new, stop bouncing. Building net new, if I take any block here, and I'm in survival mode, take any block here, it's any block, and I push it all the way down, it only is going to go down so far. It just stops. Like, it doesn't go in except for that. Weirdly, that's exactly half. So if I was to take this half block that I've been using, notice it's exactly half. It's literally level. So I have this block here, which I call an anchor block, and then I can build this place. Now, what's cool about this is that, so this means that this is at a full block height here. I can build whatever I want on top of this half block. It is now a basis for that. For me to do that on a ground, I'd have to sit here and kind of get it. So if it's above there, it's floating. Oops. And so what happens is it's not in the ground. I can't move it because it's in station mode, but it's not attached. So if I drop it, it's still, but it's not locked. I can actually move this block. I have to get like a ship, but it's not locked into place. These ones are locked. Now I can remove this anchor block, but it could disassociate this block with the ground, and then can make it so you can essentially, let's say you want to make something, but you don't want, you want it that if you take it out of station mode that it's floatable. You can do it this way, but then you run the risk of like it, if this contours, if you do this too close to the edge and the ice contours it all and intersects these blocks, it could be locked in a station mode. And what I mean by that is let me do this. Not that button, just go into this mode. So if I put a battery here, now if I cut this block out, now if I go here and I go to info, the convert to ship is highlighted. So I can convert this into a ship and I can build whatever I want. It'll be pretty stable from that point. If I put this block in place, info, and it's still there, but it won't let me. It says convert is not possible. Now if I take that block away, it should, info, convert to ship. Oh, it still says not possible. I've had it work before, so it's like where the rub kind of comes into play. Now the other thing about that is like, let's take this away, and this is one of those things where you're running into, like, I'm trying to convert it to ship and it won't let me. So notice how it's magically floating. This is one of the problems that they had with an update that happened in the last update. As this used to, you do this, these should fall, regardless if they're in station mode or not, but they stopped. So if I go in here, go to info, now do to convert ship, it will convert and the blocks will drop. It's the weirdness. So like if I was to, you know, grind apart this, you know, building here, if I left all the upper stuff, I ground down all of the stuff below, I could convert it to ship and then it would drop, but otherwise it would just float in the air. So this is where you get the I always call them magical floating box. This is where the physics engine kind of drops off. So put these blocks here, kill these off, and it's just gonna stay there. Now even if I change out modes, even if I save and come back, now actually that's something I haven't tested. Let's try this. Save, exit. Continue. Cause, and the reason, and this is kind of a good to know thing, when you exit out and load it back in, what the game does is when you close it down, it stops everything. It clears out everything that's in the memory buffers and everything like that. When you load it back in, and the reason why the load screen takes so long is what it has to do is everything that's doing a calculation, script, refineries that are running, assemblers that are running, it has to do a calculation. It'll actually recalculate every single one of these grids that's in this save, every single grid, to make sure everything is accounted for and is running as the way it's supposed to be when the save starts. I was curious because in the recalc, if it would change the state of this block. Oops, I'm no longer in creative. Switch here. 4. So this is just a cheap, easy way to check state. I could have just added a control panel to it, but this works. So yeah, it's still in station mode because it convert to ship is still an option. If I select this, it'll fall out of the thing. But without it, that block will just stay there. Now there's one other thing I wanted to check. We're gonna go into the load game, select edit. Now there was a setting. It used to be unsupported stations. This one. So it used to be my understanding that was the, and I could be vastly wrong, but it used to be my understanding that was that was what caused that to happen, was that not being selected, not that being selected. Well, that block didn't change. So now see, if I put this, if I create it here, it'll drop. If I put a battery on it, it says it's in ship mode. So if I take it out, sync it, put it up here, take out these blocks, it still shows flying in the air, put a battery on it, and that is in station mode. So, but my understanding is that one was supposed to, that was the whole point of that selector block. All right, let's get out of here. Let's check this. Let's fix that. So, unsupported stations. By enabling this option, grids will no longer turn dynamic when disconnected from standard grids. So this, when this is selected, it's supposed to do that behavior. When it's unselected, it's not supposed to do that behavior, but it does. So that button does nothing. All right, let's get back to here. Oh, damn it, I did it again. Forgot to load this week's mod. Oh, and we have to go through the sads. That is like watching these load screens twice. I could switch to the be right back screen, but what's the difference really? And we get this one, we get this phrase, which is backgrounds. I figured out how I can change the backgrounds to make them custom. I haven't done it yet, but I at least know how, because I figured out where they got saved. All right, let's exit out of this, because no. Load game, edit settings, and the mod that we're adding this week is the compass mod, because I feel like if we're going to be doing rovers here, we're going to kind of want it. But I'm not going to add that one. I'm going to add this one, because this one, these basically do the same thing. This one seems to only work well, and I say well loosely, on Earth. This one works better, and the difference is this one actually determines what north is and south based on the planet's orientation to the sun rotation. And I say that because, and so let's add that, put you in here, hit OK. It works a little better. It's particularly important to use that one when you're using custom planets, because the custom planets don't have any, they could exist anywhere on the overall map. one of the things to remember with space engineers is that the one thing it's really cool about how the physics work and everything like that. There's one alternative reality in that the sun rotates around the planets, not the planets around the sun. So, which is contrary to how we know how solar systems work, but it's how solar systems and space engineers work. That's why this is, you know, not Earth, not Mars. It's Earth-like and Mars-like, because the sun is actually going to move, not the planets. The planets are all statically located in the, but it's good enough to give us what we need. And so if you notice at the very, very top, we're getting a compass as I turn. That way is north. This direction is south. We have a local time and a UTC time. The UTC time is dependent on where we are at any given point on the planet. It won't change a whole lot, but yeah, I haven't remembered exactly. UTC works, it's universal, so it's like one static time associated to everything. So if I go to that planet over there, the UTC time should stay the same. It's based off of the location of the sun and its rotation around, and then the local time is based on where you stand. That's how I remember it. Now I remember I'm pretty close to the pole, but I don't know if I'm close enough where if I go, when you get to the pole, you'll know it's like if I was at the North Pole and I kept heading towards north, eventually, without changing direction, the compass will flip around and head south, and that's how you know when you're at the pole. Alright, so that's our mod for this week. Let's see where we're at. So we left off, we were just getting busy with the old drilling action, and we need to move. You don't have to move these out of the way, but occasionally that piston head will rub or get stuck, and then you'll have like a lot of time trying to figure out, all right, why is this piston head stopped and not going down any farther? Oh, it's because it's hung up on some block. It's got a weird collision. I also realized that when I built this drill rig setup that I kind of boo-booed a little bit in the fact that I didn't throw in a piston here. I only put in a piston there, but that's fine. We can still show the drilling trick with this. These things still work. And we should be manufacturing all kinds of ores now. And by all kinds, I mean some. Not as much as one would anticipate or have hoped for. I was expecting way more. I was also expecting way more stone by now, but hey, this is the way life works, and we're almost out of piston. I think we have enough more material to at least build another piston, so that's the important part. And the good news is we haven't been attacked by anybody yet. But today is short. Alright. Still didn't find silver. That's disconcerting. It's daylight. But gonna turn that ore detector off. I screw this up. On off. There we go. I had it. I put in just the on, so no matter how many I pushed it is on, I swear. How's our piston doing? Line drill piston. Zeroed out. Okay, so let's change the speed on this. I mean, I put a control panel here to do all this stuff, but using the control panel is crazy talk. What? Alright, control panel, controls off. Okay. Schmoky. So normally what we do is we need, for our little trick, we're gonna need 75 of these. We're gonna need 6 motors and 20 of those. And I don't necessarily need all. Oh, actually, I already had some plates with me. So I don't need all 175. I don't need to necessarily weld blocks all the way, but it's just me, and I like to. So we got that. We got that. Mostly because I have a bad tendency with grinders to grind things all the way without by accident. Alright, so we can either do it on this side or the other side. I tend to do it away from existing structures because Space Engineers has this lovely tendency to want to... You're ugly. Go away. Those make me nervous because that's where you get death blocks. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick... That's not a landing gear. That's a landing gear. We stick a landing gear on here like this, like so. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna get a block as close as we can to that landing gear. I'm gonna put 2 there. And I'll weld this. It should be locked. It doesn't have to be powered to lock. So we'll just weld this one. Don't have enough to weld them both, but it's fine. Doesn't matter. So now what I can do is I can go over to my handy dandy control panel. I can go to the advanced rotor. I can detach and go to my piston. And we're gonna change that velocity to 0.5, get it up out of the way. Now, this is part, well, I do need jetpack 4, otherwise it takes a lot of work. I mean, I can do it without, but it's a pain in the butt. Take that out. Why is it only going that high? Weirdo. That's probably why I didn't, is because I had the max distance set to 10. So while I was working on it, and I forgot to extend it, so that's why I ended up without the extra piston. 5 extra piston, and then put that rotor back in. Take the head off because we don't need it. And we have all of the parts because we ground one off. Put it back minus the 1 plate for the piston. So what I'm going to do is just clicky, clicky, clicky. Make sure all my parts are there. Click on that. It's going to tell me I'm short. I'm going to hit my shift key, point at that, and that will put those into production. Let's check our materials. Yes, we have enough. Like a glove. now I go back to here, hit the little arrow, get all the parts. Boom, down piston available. So now, there's two ways you can go about this. I always have generally gone with this one because I know what the calculation is. However, this might be a little bit off because of that, but I can tell the measurement should work. But let's start safe. We're gonna go max distance 4, and we'll go speed up 2.2, and we'll just watch it, make sure that it doesn't smash. Should be 5, but it might be off because I didn't have the pistons all the way. Yes, it is, but actually 5 might be a little bit much. Let's go with and by 5 I mean 5 here. Instead of going to full 5, let's go to 4.8 and see if it presses down on it. Oh, it's fine. It's full 5. Full figure. It was right all along. So you can see it looks pretty much like it did last time. And when you do this right, that's how it works. It will be, as you add pistons in this, you need to take 0.2 off. So the next piston I add, 4.8. Piston after that, 4.6. So I go into this, do attach, Bob's your uncle. So now, that's reattached. I can ground. So I usually take the stationary block off first, then I'll take this one off. So now I can, what I want to do is go into my control panel because it's a brand new advanced rotor, and I'll just change this mine drill. Now I have a new piston in here, and I'm just going to call this mine drill piston down 1, and then mine drill piston dash up, and I can gang these together, but I won't. Yeah, well, should be fine. And just call these mine drill pistons. Save. Why is this flashing? I saw us doing this before. Hopefully it's not doing that whole thing where it's there was a bug in the past previous to the last update before, where even though you so long time ago in galaxy far away, share inertia tensor was only available if you had specifically set the game the save to experimental mode. It's not required anymore, but it does put it, when you do that, it does make the game assumed into experimental mode. Hey Thunder Fox, hey, how you doing? Then there was an update previous to the last one where that got broke to hell. So what was happening is that it would randomly be available, not available, and by available I meant like not flashing red and white like this, like the option was either there or wasn't there at all. Now it's permanently there, but now recently, at least in this save, it's been flashing, at least with this station. I don't know why. So I'm not thinking too much about it because I can turn it on and off at my leisure. We not want to set it here. Why is it set here? We want it set on this one though, and we want it set on this one. You never want it on the base one, because what you're doing is adding the entire weight of this grid to this drill. So, but it will keep it from shaking. So now we've renamed our stuff. We want to, our down piston, we're going to reverse and set this to our normal drilling speed, negative 0.0. We only have 2 pistons, so we can run it at actually 0.2. And we'll set the max distance to 10. Actually, we don't want to set that yet. Yeah, that's fine. Set that now. Then our up one, that's gonna be at 0.02 as well. And the reason being is that we don't want to run large grid drills at any more than around 0.04 or 5. If you run a little too fast, what ends up happening is they start vibrating really hard, because you're basically smashing them into the voxels and they can explode. So that just makes for so you want to total up all of your pistons and try not to stay under that. Which is a point. I'm getting confused. This is like, oh, we'll see when I'm running it. All right, so these are all set. You'll see that slowly going up. That doesn't matter, because what we're going to do is update our button panel, and all we're going to do is add in our rotor, decrease velocity, increase velocity, and you notice our drills are still there, and we're going to change the piston, single piston, to our group of pistons reverse. But you'll notice our drills are still there, and the reason being is because the label didn't change on the drills. Even though they're disconnected and reconnected. If I was to look at this panel while they were disconnected, it wouldn't grayed out, but once they connected back up. But the reason why that works with groups, so if I was to group that rotor, it'd be fine, and then the button would always be lit, but the problem is I'd have to re-add the rotor each time to that group every time it's well, because it'll drop off and put it back in, and even though it has the exact same name, you still would have to re-add it. So you either re-add it to the group or re-add it to the button panel. If you're doing a saving grace of doing that, which seems kind of pointless while you have one part in a group, is that because of that, if you have where you have multiple different actions, actions for a button, let's say you have like a button panel, like 2 button panels, and they're controlling a whole bunch of different aspects of that one part, like you're changing rotation, you're changing the rotation speed, you're changing you're turning the locks on and off and stuff like that, and you don't want to have to, every time you grind it off and put it back on, you don't want to have to change those every single time. What you do is add it to a group, and every time you grind it off and put it back on, you add it back to that group, and then those buttons always work. So you only have to do one action versus having to re-add all of those actions again to that button panel. So that's a handy tip. Because it's so annoying. It's like, particularly when you use this drilling method that I have here. And like I said, there's a way, and I've done it. I built the entire platform where every time you want to add a piston, you just extend it up. Because I built an entire kind of like oil rigging drill system where every time that you need to add a new piston, and how I did it was, I have essentially, and it's not an easy thing to do, was I inverted the whole process. So the rotor was attached to the drill rig. The rotor part was attached to the pistons, and the pistons were actually pointed up. And so what would happen is that you would basically, whenever you needed to change out add another piston, you would just basically and the rotor was at the top of the chain, not at the bottom of the chain. So what you would do is raise the rig up. Actually, you wouldn't even raise the rig up. You'd stop the rig at a particular point, lock onto the piston with a foot or a block, disconnect, extend the assistant piston that would give you the space to add another piston, add a piston, re-add the head, and then boom, you could drill down a thing. I was actually pretty impressed with it because it's like, there's got to be a way I can do this without a jetpack and be able to just drill continuously, and all I have to do is just each time add a new piston. I did have to add a bunch of stairs and stuff like that because the level at which you can reach the rotor head to grind it off, and then the spot where you would add it back on were at two different levels, and to be able to, I couldn't move things and not have it get into the way and change the arrangement. So it was just like, okay, add a rotor head, okay, go downstairs, add this, okay, go upstairs, do this thing. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but it worked. He used to say it'll work. If space engineers, the basic concept is if there's a way to make it work. All right, so this piston's all the way up, that piston's all the way down in a sense, but it's all the way up. We hit this button, not that button, that button. That's not a button, that's a control panel. That's a button. This is what a button looks like. There are many like it. See, there's 4, but this one is the one we want. All right, so let's turn the rotation on, hey, why don't you? Hey, look, it's rotating. There was a slang back in the old days when I was a youngin', was tell somebody, it was actually even not in my days, it was actually in way oldie times. The term was sit and it was a TV show called Happy Days. It was like telling someone to, you know, go to hell or something like that, was to tell them to sit on it. And then in the like mid 80s, it was telling someone to go sit and spin. And it's like, what does that even mean? It doesn't make any sense. Go sit and spin. And we're like, what? I guess it was because that when I was a kid, there was a toy where it was called a sit and spin, where you sat on it and it had a little handle and you cranked it around and you could spin yourself around and make yourself dizzy. And it was tons of fun because, you know, there's no kind of fun other than like the type of fun that comes from spinning vigorously in a direction and getting yourself sick. All right, so what I'm gonna do right now is something that I do a lot, which is I'm gonna build a container that's going to be for my drill rigs, for that little foot setup. So yes, and this is how I know the number of parts that I need for that little assembly. It's because I do it a lot. So we're gonna just put this here, and then we're gonna go and open here and back this off. Could be any of these. It doesn't take a whole lot of space. Put that there. Put that there. 1612. I got that wrong. So what we do is go on this, and then we just put the 6 and 20. So now we have all the parts for building that foot again next time we need to add a piston. That way I don't accidentally use them all. Because yes, I will do that. I'll accidentally use all the parts and be like, crap, I don't have the parts I need to make that make that foot so I can extend the drill so I can get more material for parts. I'm a derp. How's this battery doing? Shouldn't you be charged by now? 17 hours? You suck. I was like, I need more material because I want to do the rest of these. Although, I did not get as much ice out of this as I thought I would. 77K is not a whole lot of ice. I was generally thinking I'd at least end up with like 200. I guess that layer is just not as thick as I thought it was. But yeah, I got the speed right though. I can tell by, I know how fast that I have done this so much. I know how fast that head should be moving for it to be adequate. So when you're, so what I do is that I tend to have in my own personal space a 6-piston limit, and setting 0.01 on each of them, which means the max velocity being 0.06. That works okay, but once I get to 7, then you start getting in like 0.0085, like, and it's a lot of extended pistons, so that you're managing. And so what I end up doing is if I'm digging that deep, and the only time you ever really digging that deep is if you're using the rare ore mod, which puts them, can put ores down like 400 meters, 600 meters, some ridiculous depth. And that's why I built that drilling rig. Is like, well, I got to figure out a way of getting down to this ore, and I'm not going to be flying way down there, way back up, and stuff like that. So what I would do is that I would just invoke a like 6-piston limit. That once I got to 6, I would pull the whole thing up, grind everything out, put in conveyors, and then drop it back down. Actually, I think that's how I was doing it. I wasn't doing pistons. I was just adding conveyors. Just so that, because once I got to 6, it's like, well, screw it. It's cheaper to just keep adding conveyors and sending it down, and you keep adding more pistons and stuff like that, and just making the stability of the whole drill rig just kind of go through the roof. Where this is like, I can just add conveyor tubes to this, and if you use the rounded tubes, it actually looks like you're, I mean, it looks like an, you know, an oil rig and drilling a large pipe. You know, especially if you use like black conveyor tubes. So yeah, if you were to go this one and say like, actually even I don't use the full black. If you're just use these, and it'll kind of look like you're got yourself an oil rig. So it was a very much an oil rig looking thing. I should find that save, and I posted the workshop, but it's one of those things where it's like, it could be like what I'm doing with the universal components, which makes it. So now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm really thinking hard about like doing that, because that's a better. What's great about that is that it's a good start point, because the whole rig itself doesn't. So a lot of the problem with like posting mining stations in there is that if someone's doing a copy paste, the drills themselves are already in the ground. If you're just putting a projector down and then doing it, then you can do your own thing. But if you're just taking the rig itself and doing a like, so if I was to go Alt F10, creative mode, go F10, go to something here, like say this, actually let's see, it's like a building, say I'm setting up a save for a scenario for my friends, and I want to put in a gas station. I can copy this, and yeah, this is not available in this world, sure, whatever, and I can just take it and I can just find a flat surface here, or at least flatter, and boom, gas station. But if the drills are, if you have a drill rig like this, and the drill rig driller are in the ground, what happens when you paste it is you're pasting the drills in the ground, and there's no hole there. So either they have to pre-drill a hole, or they have to pre-drill the hole, or they're going to have to drill out, they're going to have to grind out with their hand drill the drills, and grind the drills out, because there'll be voxels inside the drills, and then take them out. So that's one way of doing it if you're trying to set up a survival scenario, but you don't want to have to like build the whole thing in creative, save it, change the save over to survival, you can just in survival just change the creative mode to that. So we're gonna delete that because we didn't build it, and we're gonna take ourselves out of creative. Getting back to the roots of this whole thing, which is explaining how to do crap. Wow, that already went through the iron. Iron's not very low. We should have buku parts now. Or ores. We do, 230. Yeah, we'll be alright for a bit. Actually, let's check those drills. Yeah, we got one drill mostly full. Two, that's not bad. I've had it where it's just like hasn't been paying attention. Go and check. The container is full, all the drills are full, and stuff's about to break. It's gonna fall apart real quick. So what we need to do is actually move this over so it processes the stone first. It will go through the stone faster and it'll go through the iron, so we will actually make space. Plus, what will happen is these drills that are full of stone will push this here, and so basically the stone will get cleared out so we can clear out those drills. Where it becomes problematic is what happens sometimes is when you have iron in these drills, and I don't know if I've done it earlier in the stream, where you have to do like this trick where what you have to do is go to the container. You have to swap the ore that you want to do last, pull the stone out, put it behind it so that the drills empty out into that ore into that container. Essentially, let's say there was 100 iron in there and I wanted to get that out. So what I would do is I would switch it over to here and I would dump it out. I don't know, it's not a great analogy. Like if actually, let me see if I can do it with this. So if I want to get the, actually it won't work. I just have to move it. So it only works with drills, because drills, what they do is they will, their goal in life is to be empty. And what they'll do is they'll find any available cargo space to empty into. So whatever you have here that it can throw ore into, it will. And the only reason it hasn't thrown in the survival kit is the survival kit is not piped. If I completed this and completed that, it would pump stone into that survival kit because it was an available place to stick stuff. But that's their goal in life is to not have stuff in them. And there's no way to change that. That's just how they roll. You can't use drills for storage unless you take a drill and you just build it off to the side. It will much unlike. So this is one of the concerns that
energy critical
are the things that would run into when people would do survival series, is where they are like speed runs where they don't have cobalt and can't build containers. There's a way around that because you can build, but let's say you can't build containers. You can only like if you're trying to think of a series, and what they did is that they could only they couldn't build anything. I think that's what it was. They couldn't build anything. There was something that made it so that they could not build cargo containers. They hadn't unlocked it yet or something like that. But what they could do is they could build welders and grinders, which work very well for actual storage. They're actually a pretty decent storage thing, but they're weird because they don't release their parts. They actually inverse to everything, like, and I don't know if you can store ore in them, but you can store stuff in them. But then if you were to say try to use your build planner to pull parts out of them, it won't let them go. You have to manually move all of the parts in and out of that unit. So like if I was to go to this cargo container and hit the little arrow button to load it, it won't pull anything that's in a welder. That's what it is. Because a grinder will act like a drill. It will give up its parts to whatever associative container that it's in, but a grinder won't. Collectors are a little bit weird too, but that's usually dealable. All right, we're maxed out there, so let's just turn the drill head off, turn the rotation off until our refinery can catch up. How are we doing? Not too bad. We have 2 drills left with stone in them. So the good news is that once this is another kind of thing that people run into from time to time, which is handy to note. The refinery, the reason why this ore is in here is because it got pushed through by the drills. The drills, like I said, their main goal in life is to push material out of them, and they'll do it in any available space. Right now the cargo is full, so it's pushing in any available space in the refinery. So that's what's getting the stone out of here, and why that refinery is staying right at the top end of its availability. What will happen is that once these drills are empty, the refinery will just refine down and it won't stock any new items till it gets to about 2,500. So it'll be available space. So what you can do at that time is then you can pull some stone out of here, push it, that iron here, and that will make sure that it goes through the stone. But it's going to, even if I left this iron here, if I walk away and don't do nothing, what'll happen is that it will process through the stone, it'll do this iron, and then it'll pull more stone because it works from left to right in the container. The problem is that if you have multiple containers, the way that it will pull from where they are in the line. And this is where it gets really confusing. It's really hard because it has nothing to do with the way that things are in this dashboard. This dashboard is actually based off of what you connect from where you connected to. So, say I connected into the connector at mine O2H2 generator, and then the next associative block is the assembler, and then off that's the drills, and then it's the large cargo is off the side. Then it'll show the refinery, which is kind of weird because you'd think it would be refinery then cargo from here, but it's the order that actually it's the order of when it's built. And because I built the refinery and the cargo, so it doesn't. If I was to grind down the refinery and then put it back in, it would then be after the cargo, which won't work because then it's like you don't have access because that's how it goes through the cargo container. But essentially that's the order that it shows up, and it's in the order and built, but where you connect is always first. But the way that the refinery pulls it, and I haven't done much experimenting this with because usually it doesn't matter, is, well, what if I have a container on this side and a container on this side and I have ores on both sides? And it's just like, I don't know. Might pull from both, might just pull from one then the other. Actually, I think at that point it has to do with the build order. If I built the one over here first and the one over here second, it's going to pull from that first one and then from that second one. But it will pull in the from the next available in the line. And since with this setup, it's real easy because there is only one container, so it's only going to come from one source, and that source being the large container I have. So what I generally do with this, if I need more containers, let's say I was going to drill deeper and I was grab more ores, which I don't really need to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start stacking, and I did this in the beginning of the series. You'd see is I'd stack containers this way, like if I was drilling in an ice lake. So this one would fill up with ice, then this one would fill up with ice, and then this one. And if all of my refining and assembly stuff is up in the front here, which usually it is, it's going to refine from this container, then this container, then this container. And what I want to do is then when I'm arranging this ore in here and I want it to do the stone first because it's going to do that the fastest And I usually, it depends on what I need it, in what order I need it, but I generally put the stuff that, I usually put the stone first because there's usually a lot of it and the process is the fastest. But if I need the iron, I'll switch the order, and then I'll switch the order in the refinery. And I'll do a lot of jiggering around to try to get that. So, oh, I need that iron, but I don't need it right now, so that's not why I'm doing it. In fact, actually, I got tons of iron. So, but I'll jigger it around to make sure that whatever I need at that point is in the front. So, to summarize, left to right, and top to bottom. So if there's tons of tons of ores in here, it's gonna work from here this way. So I just want to put the stuff that the order of which I want refined, left to right, and in the, looking at from the refinery to the next container, then the next container. And then you can cheat things, because if you notice, this is like what I would do is like a lot of times I would put in this one, I'd put all the ice. Refinery's not going to do ice, and then, another ice, and then I'll put the ores, and I always would put any of the parts last. So that way it doesn't mess around. So, and I usually put a container that has parts last, so it doesn't end up shifting around a whole bunch of stuff. So I'd always be putting it in that order. Just a handy tip. Alright, so we've got that. So I might as well start finishing this build. Is this thing off? Yes, cool. So the next one here is ask for parts, don't get them, put them in production. Beauty is now we've got mucho iron, and a basic assembler only has space for 2,000, so I'm just gonna put like 5,000 in here. If you fill this up and it's full, this particularly happens when it's like pressed for space and it starts the refinery starts trying to, this fills up, it'll try to evac these parts somewhere so that it can keep refining. So it'll push into the assembler, and what it'll do is it'll take the first one, which is this gravel, and it'll try to jam that in there, and then what'll happen is then no new ores can get in there, and so then it'll stop actually assembling stuff because it doesn't have any space to add the new material in. So you gotta go, it's like, oh, system's gummed up, so you have to take this stupid ass gravel, move it into this container. So now the drills are empty, as you may have noticed. They pushed all that out, and you can see we're at around 2,000, and yeah, it gets right around 2,000, and then it restocks itself. But it's always restocking the stone, because that's what I have chosen first. It's never touching this iron. I can move this iron up here, but it's not going to touch it, because that's what's in the order. So when it restocks what's in order, which is this case stone, and it just keeps repopulating it back into here. I can move that up there just so I can keep track of how much stuff I have. Make it pretty, but I know what's going on. Alright, so that motor's done. Well, that. So a little fun fact, as it were. Let's say I'm gonna weld this, and we don't have any parts. I right click. Now, if you notice, I have this. If I click on this, it says cannot draw, but it's perfectly legit port. I should be able to get that. I can go over here and get it. Actually, I can't because it's not made. But now I gotta wait for these parts to get made so I can prove my point. If I go over here, as these parts, as you can see them in there, but if I click on here, see, I still can't withdraw them from here. even though it's connected. This next power over here, I can do it, no problem, but I can't draw them from here. And the reason being is the ports on the hydrogen engine don't play with build planner. They say, screw your little build planner game, I'm not playing. So like I said, if I click this, now what's weird is that, watch, I can't get it out here, but I can put them into production. I just can't pull them out. I can go in here and I can manually pull stuff. I can move this in and move this out, but I can't build planner through it. It's a funky thing, and it works essentially the same on the other end, the connection on the end too. But I don't have that problem with the hydrogen tank, the survival kit if it was connected. Everything else is like, sure, you want parts here, go, have a day. But the engines, the other one is the medical bay.
Energy low.
Yeah, medical room, excuse me. Medical, the ports on the medical room do the same thing. So you can see they look like normal ports, and you can do the same thing. You can put parts into production, but you try to pull the parts out and it says no gusta. Sitting here and enjoying a nice sunset on Mars. And I know that because I know the local time is 17:22. That's one of the great things about the compass mod. Now notice that it's not changing directions even though I'm turning my head around. This is because as I'm seated, I'm facing a direction. When you're seated, you're not turning your body, you're turning your head. So something to keep in mind. But what's great about that is that local time, it's about, you know, it's in military time. There's a way to change that. I don't, because it makes it easier for me because I understand it. So it's about 7:30 p.m. where we're at, and we know that this is sundown, not sun up. And we also know that, and this is what I was talking about like being accurate. Even though we're facing east and the sun would set in the west, so north is over there, so south is over there, you would think it would be morning, but because we're on Mars, it might actually consider it the other direction. Actually, I think it has to do with the fact that that's the direction I'm heading, not the direction I'm facing. I don't know. But at least it's accurate, and to the extent that that's east and that's north, and whereas if you were to use the regular compass mod, it wouldn't point to it wouldn't be oriented in any particular way because it was based around the original compass mod was based off of the orientation of a planet in a particular location in the coordinates of the world map. This actually takes a calculation of where you are on the planet and its orientation of that planet to the sun. It also could be because I know I'm pretty close to a pole and that can throw things off. I don't remember which pole, but I'm near one. Now, I did this tank first, even though I should have done this first because I wanted to show that thing with the engine. The reality is this hydrogen tank's just going to eat up all of that ice. And that's fine. We can at least, we might not be able to run the motor other than for emergency power, but we can at least charge. And that's one of the reasons why I do it this way is like if we want to run out of ice, you can just go up here and so make sure it's auto refill. But then I can put my bottle in there and refuel my bottle that way. Function over fashion. And once this is in place, you'll notice I can also go to the survival kit and recharge my suit. Grab that. So put this in place. Now I can actually go here and click on this with F, and you see my hydrogen and my O2 go up along with the power. So it's fully connected. Or I can put my bottle in here and charge it that way. Or I can put it in here because it's now processing ice, but if that's out of ice, it ain't gonna do squat, so I can put it in here. And you can actually look and see now that it's filling. As we're also processing things. So where else? What else do we need? Let's do these stairs. So the whole point of building this was that we're actually going to start building a large grid mining rover. So as part of that, there's that. Now we're going to want to work, we, as in I'm actually going to use a blueprint. So use a generic color block. I need some. Let's go ahead and get that rolling. We're also going to need some of you and some of you and some of you. Probably need some other stuff, but that'll get us started. Alright, so we're going to, now the way this land contours, it goes down, and I don't want to, actually this should be fine. I want it near manufacturing, so we'll just do this. Actually, no, do this, these, yes. It's indeedy. 9. So, I've also been having mucho projector issues. And mucho projector issues is like, okay, so the way that we are taught that the orientation for a projector is based off of this, which is the cross block is on top and the slash is in the front, and we get that, and this has gone through many a tutorial, is based off of how it looks in here. So if you're to go to that, you see there's the cross, and then here's the front hash, and all the parts in their orientation are down and to the left. So that is the front. That's how you know it's the front. Except for there was one exception to the rule. I can never remember which one it was. It points the other way. It's freaking bizarre. These ones are cockeyed, so. Can't remember what one was offhand. yeah, the passageway one is quirky. I think it was the vent. The vent is actually the front is actually pointing to the right. It was like everything is oriented so the front is down and to the left. And then you do this, where it's pointing to the right. The hell's the matter with you? And did it with a little engineer plushie. Because it's just like, we're gonna come up with a convention and then we're gonna change it. But anyway, so and then I found is that when you blueprint stuff, there's this thing about the aspect of it being based off of the first block you place and the orientation of it when you blueprint it. So the orientation of when I blueprint something had been working for a while. So if I wanted to blueprint this rover, which I already have blueprinted, but I would do it actually blueprint it from the back. So I would not from the top, but from the back. So I had to make sure I'm pointing to the back. And the way to kind of see this is, and you don't want to do it off the wheels, you want to do it off the back. And a way to kind of see how this is going to play out in Blueprint is we can turn this on, and we can actually, instead of blueprinting it, we just do a copy. And now we look at it, and we should be, it's squared to gravity. So it's nice, and we're looking at it, and if I was a projector, I would be projecting it like this. But I've been running into some weirdness where I've projected something from the back, and I think the problem is because I've been pointing down on it, trying to hit the back, and accidentally hitting the top. And so it's just like, so I have to be careful about that. And it's not a big deal because you can change the orientation and thing, but what ends up happening is you have to do a lot of like these flips and changing around and stuff, whereas if you blueprint it from where you want, like you are the projector and I want it to project this way, so it's usually from the back, unless you want to project it, want the projector to be projecting from the front. It all depends on how you want it to be oriented. In fact, in retrospect, yeah, I could have done that ship that way, but that would mean it would be, yeah, whatever. I know what you're doing. I need you guys up front. I need you in the back. I need you to wait too, but I need you to wait more. And so anyone who's been doing this a really long time should have pretty much memorized when you've played it Space Invaders for a really long time, there's certain things you don't mean to memorize, you just happen to memorize. And the big one for me has been parts to a battery. It is 30 of these, 25 of these, 80 of these, and 80 of the steel plate. And I only memorized them because it's just, you build this game, you build a lot of batteries. A lot of batteries. Speaking of which, get up there. So get that out of the way. Tired of looking at your face. So we'll go to a little engineering guy. 30. Oops. 25. And you can see on here 30, it's actually 10 and then 20 and then 25. And got it. So now I just need the power cells. And unfortunately, I still have the engineer at the default inventory size. So it means I can carry 25 cells at a time, which means it's 4 trips to build a battery, which is sad. Actually, I think while we're waiting, let's just do that. It's you've gotten the point. I'll put it into where I normally play at. So we get just used to it. Advanced character inventory 5. I don't do 10 because that's just weird. So hopefully I'll have some time to scrape different message boards and what have you, because there's been a lot of mods that I've been seeing doing minor updates. In fact, actually one that's under discussion right now is that the Build a Vision mod seems to have been I won't say broken, but bugged up a bit. I'm not running anything that would show it now, but in fact, actually I should have done it, showed it in the other save when I thought of it, but I didn't make a note of it to talk about it. What I noticed is that, so if you see down below where it sees the little let's see if I could down in the menu, imagine that red dot is my pointer. This little spot here, if you look at the red dot, look at the red dot, stare at the red dot, but the little thing here that shows your inventory capacity. When you're running a drill ship or a ship that has drills, Build Vision puts a separate line up there to show you what your drill inventory is. Well, a recent update that always shows empty. But there's been also some other bugginess too, and I'm wondering if the flashing that we're seeing there isn't associated with Build Vision having some kind of weird funkiness associated with it. So that might be it. There's a way to check that, which is I can basically remove the mod. If I hit F2, you can go into here.
Energy low.
Actually, let's, before we do that, let's go sit down. Alright, F2. Oh, this is gonna be weird. Settings. Oh, I can't do it this way. I mean, I can do it this way. It's just very disorienting. The way here. F2. Okay. So targeting, GUI settings, legacy mode off. This has to do with the wheel. Menu scale, that's fine. Capacity, wheel, yeah. To get to this menu, you just hit F2. And this is how you can change the different properties for both BuildInfo settings. Only supposed to access this configurator, open chat, and then press F2. So for BuildInfo, it says open chat, so you hit enter, then you hit F2. Yeah, which I did, and it's telling me to suck eggs. Might be that, which is being... Mod menu is enabled, open to... That's what I did. So, enter opens the chat menu. F2 is to access. Oh, there it is. This one. So, I forgot where it was. So, that's, you know, settings for chat, oh, HUD. This is underhair, crosshair messages off, default. So these are, I generally leave all these default. Ship tool inventory bar on. Yeah, so it's this one that's been, it's this section here that's gotten buggy. Toolbar. Yeah, it's BuildInfo that's gotten buggy. So it's like the HUD, and it's the ship tool inventory bar. And I turn that on and off. Yeah, that's fine. But it wasn't showing. I'll have to check it in a drill ship and see what happens there. But yeah, it's been doing some derp. Let's just put it that way. Might have to do like some further investigation on it. Okay, that's weird. When I went, it showed 70. I must have grabbed 20 at some point. Weird. Okay. So that's up. And then we have a control block here. We can go to a project here. We can go to our blueprints here. And type rover. And the rover we want is this bad mamma jamma. My question is, do I want this one or that one? Oh yeah, I don't want that one. That's minimum. I don't want either of them. I want maximum. I want this guy. Hopefully this is right. And this better be the rover and not the base. Yes, this is the rover. So I realized I blueprinted it while it was still attached to a base. So I noticed that it's in the ground and thing. So first thing I do is I just vertically raise it up real high, so I can see the orientation. So this is what we're building. This. I like this. I like this. Alright, so this is really hard to do in the dark, but it's actually probably better than... So it's easier to adjust these things once we're in here. So let's... I just need to rotate it, I think. And so these... This is one of the things that's gotten screwy over time. Because the orientation gets a little weird, you can't... It's not... I just need it to flat... I need it to flat turn, and it's not flat turning. There it is. That's the one I want. And... I think that's the orientation I want. Let's... Set that there. See, that's horizontal. That's what I want. I want forward. So let's forward a bit. Yeah, that's the side that I want because I want that. All right, now I'm gonna bring this down a bit. I don't want to get too far down because then I can't put the wheels on it, and it's hard to tell. You have to kind of guess. All right, let's close that out. We're gonna have to shift it left to right a little bit. So my goal is that this red bit here, that's the part that I want oriented right over top of me. So let's go here. I think that's close. What we'll do is we'll drop it down and then we'll bring it back up. Okay. Yep, that's the one we want. Now I'm gonna raise this back up so the wheels will build. Wheels will clear. And how we check for that is that we basically take, these are 3x wheels, so we take a 2, and we'll go that one, and then we'll just basically hold a wheel in the general orientation. Just turn on the headlight, and we can kind of get an idea about what our clearance is gonna look like. So we can probably come down probably like 2 blocks. And by 2 blocks we go to 9 here, because the highest point of the ground looks to be about here, and we want to, oh man, I blueprinted this with the damage. That's unfortunate. It'll come out in the wash, it's fine, but it's just weird that it's blueprinted. There's damage blueprinted in this already. That's the wrong wheel, but that's alright. Looks, yeah, these actually look like, when I match these up, these look more like 5x's. Looks like we're still clearing, but maybe I did use 5x's on this. Yeah, I think we're okay. Yeah, I did use 5x. The way you can tell is a 5x5. See, these are 3x3s because there's only the assembly. This mounting point is only 1 block, not 4 blocks. If I was to show, so here's the 3x, and you notice the connector point is 1. If I went to the 5x, you can see that the connector is 2 blocks by 2 blocks. Oh, is it 2x1? 2. Should be 2 blocks. It's hard to tell when you're just comparing a part to a blueprint. But it's one way to find out. So we just go in here. Actually, we do. Now, the way that I build large grid projections that I found that works best for me is I don't actually weld as I go. I grid as I go. That's a terrible thing, of course. gonna do is we're not gonna weld these things. We'll get to it eventually. But what we're gonna do is just go through and we're gonna start
Energy
all these
low.
blocks, which will give us the orientation. Now the projector reminds me I need to set this to key projection. The reason being is that once I've tapped this, create the block, the projector, when you don't have that highlighted, considers that block completed. Even though I haven't welded or done anything, if I was to grind this off, it won't come back. It's completed, so it's done, and it removes it off of the grid that you're building. So put that there, that there, that there. I'm gonna just go down to one of these wheels and highlight on this, and it is in fact a 3x3. So go there and you can see now the wheel shows up. There's a few subgrids in this design, and so building it in survival is a bit tricky because only from the fact is that where there are subgrids you have to kind of know what to put in, whereas if I was to just copy paste this in like I showed earlier with the building, it would have all the bits. But if I was to copy paste it in, because I haven't vetted this blueprint, it may copy paste in if it's blueprinted with the base attached, then it's gonna blueprint in. The reason why it goes with this one, even if the building's in there, is because it's attached as a subgrid. So what it'll do is it'll
Energy critical.
just give me the one with the most blocks. That's what it does when projecting in survival, and if you have you have a grid. That's why when I was talking earlier in the stuff I've been doing, like I can't project in survival the entire Nissus clawcraft because the wings are in subgrids. It won't project them. It will only project what the largest grid is. So if there are more parts in the wing that were in the main body, that would be the part that it would project. Unless you specifically, and the only way to do that is that you would have to project the main body and then the wings, and then you'd either have to kind of do some squirrely stuff to kind of get the projection to sit the way that you want, which is really hard, or like I was saying, you have to project the main body and then separately project the wing. Oh, we're on O2. I suffer. Alright. It's because I'm not carrying an oxygen tank, which on a planet that has no oxygen, that's not the smartest plan. Do I have one in here? No, sir. Probably should do that. We still got ice. Tools, oxygen bottle. Put you in front. Come on. I need some like moral encouragement here. Some moral encouragement. There we go. All right. Back to what I was doing. Okay. Okay, so I said we're gonna just grid this out And what I'm going to do to save everybody's minds and lives is I'm going to grid this out, but I'll do some of the welding off stream because there's nothing exciting about that. Unless something happens, then I'll record it and play it back. Oh, we're gonna need Buco silver for some stupid ass reason, and it started from the early days, like when I first started playing Space Engineers. I kept referring to silver as sugar. I guess I'd make silicon salt, I guess. I don't know. It's just like, and I just keep saying things in my head, and I was like, oh, I need more sugar. I'm like, what? No, silver, not sugar. Where do you, I don't even know where that comes from. I have no idea. So one of the things that Build Division does, if it is able for me to place, i.e. for in a projection to be able to do something, it'll be green. But if you notice, it goes yellow. That's because I'm standing too close and I need to back off a bit. One of the things that Build Vision will also do is if you're going to grind a block, so let's say I do that one, and I'm going to grind, see that one's red and that one's yellow. That means that if I grind that, something's gonna fall off. That means that there's this block here is supported by this block. If I grind it off, this falls off. This one is not supporting anything, so I can grind it. It's like no harm, no foul. So when you're going crazy with a grinder, it's one of the things, and you're running Build Vision, you want to kind of keep an eye out. So it's like red means stop. It's bad. I like in survival, I like projecting and building large grids. I do not like welding projected small grids because they are very, you can walk in between and see things in a large grid. You cannot do that with a small grid. If you don't, and it is real easy because there's so many small parts to, when you're doing like this process here, to be going through and highlight a block or, you know, start a block like this that you can't reach because it's like, it's got that block and 3 blocks around it. So now you've got blocks in your way and you can't see. Plus, while you're doing this, you can stand, and so one of the tricks I'm doing is I'm purposely getting really close to these blocks. So I'm standing in a block in front of me, also the block that so this block here, so I don't accidentally start it until I get the block under it in place. So I'm purposely walking through blocks to block them from accidentally starting. Or I'm missing it completely and falling and getting injured. That's the thing. Okay, so now's the time to, so like I said, it's broken in the blueprint, but when I put it together, it'll be fine. I want to put this together and make sure, come on, that wheel builds. Yes, in fact, actually I could have come down one whole block and would have been fine, but this will work. It'll be okay. So there's a whole series of blocks that's in this build that are missing. See this one over here, see how this is not like that? We'll have to add those in later, but it's fine. It's not required, it's just, it's an unfortunate thing. So what we can do is actually, when we finish building this thing, we can actually re-blueprint it so that it's correct and have it, and we do any upgrades while we're doing our little adventure, we can fix that too. There's certain aspects of this rover that we won't need. Like I said, this is actually designed for doing a pole-to-pole run. And one of the things, and I'm going to see if I can crawl up here to the top side. You'll see there's a hinge up here. This one, that one. See, there's this hinge up here, and then there's this channel in here. And what that is to hold a set of pistons with a head on it. And what you can do is, which we might not have to use, is that we can, with that hinge, flip those over, extend those pistons that have a locking plate on it, and grab and pull ourselves up a hill. So it can climb. Problem is, it's a very, like, the rate of climb is based on the speed of those pistons pulling the whole rover up a hill. And you have to stop, lock it down, and that's what. So these pistons down here, right here, and the one that I started back there, their job in life is to lock. They do two functions. One is they can, if I lose a wheel, I can lift up the whole rover and replace a wheel. So I have the ability to add wheels back in when they get knocked off for one reason or another. The second purpose they actually have three, is so that, and I generally just use one. There's in the controls for this, there is a particular set for just managing one of the pistons to lock for when you're doing the climbing exercises. And the third thing is that this also comes, and the reason why we're building this, it comes with this channel here, and which we'll have to build in, is an entire drilling rig that allows this whole thing to be a roving mining platform, and actually can drill pretty deep. I think I can get 50 meters down. It's either 40 or 50, because I think it's 4 pistons. Yeah, it's 1 piston one way and 3 pistons the other way, so it's 40 meters. Not super far, but it's enough that it's enough distance that so like this iron that we got here, that was only like from here, we're only really 1 piston down, and we went through it. So this would be able to mine that ore no problem. So on a planet like this, it's very feasible this would be a very functional setup. So that's part of why I'm using it. And actually, you can get a lot of the base ores. Oop, I didn't mean to start rolling that. Some of these are going to have more steel plates than others. This is why we make a lot of steel plate and a lot of the interior plate. That's the word I'm looking for. Starts with an I. It's not iterative plate, it's internal plate. Interior plate, not internal plate. Interior. I mean, could be an internal plate, but that makes no sense. Ah. Oh, over there. That will happen sometimes. You're like, creating this block. No, you're not. You're gonna create this block that's behind you. Weirdo. So I am not going to. We got about 15 minutes left. I'm not gonna be able to grid this entire thing. Oh, I've expanded my inventory, so now I can carry more plates. I'm actually up to my what I consider my personal standard, which is the X5. I mean, you can go to 10. I think trying to remember. I think Frostbite is set to the 5X. I did another scenario. Mars? Yeah. Mars, I think, was on 10X. Like, I was carrying ridiculous amounts of parts. It's like, how can I have all of these pots in my hand? So this gets a lot easier once you get a vast majority of this. Oh, I have a. Ooh. So I actually might weld this in stream because I forgot this thing uses a Nanobot build and repair system, which I did add that mod to this, so it is available, and so I can actually focus on material management, and I can just have this build. I'll have to put in the main functional parts, like minimally the cargo container, and I think actually, let's take a look. I think as long as I get, yeah, because the cargo container is not attached to anything yet. Can we fix that? There's actually 2 cargo containers in this thing, 2 large cargo containers, and an assembler. So we can do that, and do that. We can weld up this, and we can move the manufacturing, and there's even a refinery up in Haw. That's not how I want it. I want this, but that'll work. Like I said, you do this in the right order, and you can have it. You can basically use it to self-build. Ah! I walk too fast. I walk too fast. I fall to the hole. So really, if we get it right, all I have to do is feed it material, and it'll basically chew through building itself. And then when the new AI blocks come around, we can make it self-aware. We can change it, and its namesake will become even more prevalent, because the name of this rover is Maximum Overdrive, which I don't think I have in the workshop yet, but we may publish after this. We run this bad boy. Ugh, that was a notification I didn't need to see. Your on-call starts tomorrow. No. No. No, come on. I want this one. Yeah, no, it's gonna be gone because freaking went into that other thing. How are we doing on manufacturing, by the way? Ooh, still got tons of. I don't know if all that iron will build this thing, but it'll get us really darn close. You and your build parts. All right, come on. I really liking the idea of building this. This gives me a chance to show a lot of cool stuff. Because I think the next thing we're gonna start getting into, because I haven't been doing a whole lot of like, because I mean, the general prowess of like, you guys got this. I mean, the video, the earlier videos covered like the basics, you know, how to build stuff. We went through how to build a small projection and why that's a pain in the ass. Oh, come on. Make me pull this rover over. Get the parts arranged.
Energy low.
Oh, I know the next mod. I'm gonna make a note to myself. I know the next mod I need to add. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna wait until next week. I'm also gonna make a note to myself. I said that there's 2 links I'm gonna send in here. I gotta remember what else. I'm gonna send. I'm gonna attach the link to this video on Twitch after the fact and on YouTube when I post the video. One is gonna be for the Nissus Clawcraft. The other one is for Black Armor's YouTube video. That's what it is. Can't remember to do these things. I highly recommend it because you're gonna look at the stuff. This is why I say I don't do tutorials. Not that I mean, Splitsie does the top shelf. I mean, is the gold standard when it comes to tutorials. I animately refuse not to do tutorials because I bow down to the master. I just show. I just showing things I learned and cool tricks and giving people exposure to the fun and excitement that is this thing. But you want to learn how to do something, he is the gold standard. You go there. What I will say, Black Armors, you're gonna start watching through the videos and go,
Energy critical.
that's how to take what this stuff is and make it cooler. Like, I watched through some of his videos. I haven't watched through all of them. But every time, and I don't care how long you've been doing this, you're gonna learn something. Now, here's the grain of salt comment. You can tell that he does a lot of stuff in creative mode. Because what his stuff is very, very pretty. But some of it comes at the cost of being expensive. So it'll look cool, and if you're in it to kind of just build cool looking stuff, that's your jam right there. If you're looking more into like playing survival and doing cool stuff in survival, or you're just whatever you're fancy, that's the grain of salt. Is that just be mindful is that you can make amazing stuff, because essentially like I said, this is before. Space Engineers is like Minecraft on a major crack bender. It gives a lot of functionality, and it has a lot of leniency in that fact. Is the fact that you have, you still have the whole like block mentality on stuff. And the upside, you have a lot of custom looking blocks. Obviously, it still works off the block pattern, as you can see. Like, if I have this half block here, I can't put anything else in that space. Whatever you put in that block, and that's when you're building stuff around, you have to look at stuff, from the standpoint of what is inhabiting that block. In small grid, it's a smaller block. Large grid's larger block. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a entity existing in a block, and what you're managing is what exists in that block and how it interacts. And where it adds is the fact that you don't get with Minecraft is the aspect of subgrids. Now, the trade-off is where I've talked earlier about PCU. Yes, you can ignore PCU, but it doesn't give you like unlimited access to build. Like in Minecraft, you can change every block in the world to a new thing, and it's virtually limitless. You don't get that here. Every block comes with a cost, and that cost is associated, as you can see over on the side. This block PCU 1, not a big deal. This block over here, this gun, 225 for a Gatling turret. That's a little pricey when you consider the fact, and like, if you have an Xbox Series X, which gives you the largest PCU available, you're still limited to, I think they upped the ante and you can go a full 100,000, which is what you get defaultly in a Space Engineers thing, whereas when they first started it was limited to 50. And FYI, the space station that I was working on in the other save, the station by itself is over 50k PCU, and you can't turn that on and off in the Xbox. You can adjust it in a computer, in the computer version. You cannot adjust it in the console version. So it is what it is. Ah, damn it. We're not going to be able to build this thing unless, so I can't add the mod I was going to add it, because next week I have to, there's a block I have to add to be able to finish this because it's missing in here, and I can sub around it, but it's going to be very difficult. But I'm not going to be able to mount these guns without it. It's an armored conveyor block. I could sub around it, but so the secret being, I was going to add the when I was talking about when I was hearing the voice, I was just like, oh, you know what I should add is wasted spaces, snarky sounds. Because it's like, I'm trying not to repeat myself whenever the HUD lady's coming on and telling me my energy's low, and it's just like, and it's so repetitive. She gets something else, and it's like, oh yeah, I have that. I might add both. I might go crazy and add both. We'll see. We'll see how things go. All right. Well, we're at midnight. I still have a lot of this to go. Like I said, we are probably, because still got a lot of the super grid to go. We'll continue next week. It's not light. And this, and this, and this, and this. All right, so the sun's coming up. So next week, the plan is we'll continue to grid this out. We'll get all of the stuff arranged to get the assembler on board here arranged. We're gonna we'll focus on the primaries. We'll get the build and repair up, and we'll get that operating, and that will handle all of our welding, and so we can focus on material management. So we'll watch how that goes. So that'll actually work out well. So if you watch my Monday streams, I'll see you tomorrow. If not, if I don't talk to you before, I'll see you next week. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks. Good night.